only 3 girls in the cohort. So 3 of us, we apply. So they reached out to me a week later. They were like, oh my God, we have an interview with JP. And I was like, excuse me, I don't. Like, how did I send you the link and you get an interview and I don't? So they did their interviews and I wait, I don't hear back. I was like, okay, like something is wrong. So I find this recruiter on LinkedIn and I reach out to her and I was like, hey, like I saw that you have an opening and I really would love a chance to like interview. She was like, unfortunately, like the deadline for the application has already passed. And they do this thing called hackathon, which is like the final round interview. She was like, the hackathon is scheduled for Monday. By the time we're speaking, it's Wednesday. So she was like, will you be down to do like back-to-back interviews in the next coming days? I was like, sign me up. So Thursday, I did my first round. Friday, I did my second round. And then I ended up doing the hackathon on Monday. And then Wednesday, I got the offer, which is like 2 days before graduation.
What's up, guys? You know what it is, another episode of the Custom Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Baines. Before we get started, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, make sure you go ahead and do that. Hit the subscribe button below. I am really excited about today's guest. I always try to highlight people that have unique pathways in STEM or in tech, and today's guest definitely has a unique journey. So I'm really excited to interview Selam Degefu and kind of learn about her journey through tech, how she got to where she's at. She's currently a software engineer at JPMC Chase. We're going to talk about everything that she did along the way to get to where she's at. So Selam, thanks for joining today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Selam Degefu. I got the name right?
Yep, you
All
did it.
right, cool. Hey, real quick, I'm always curious, like when I meet people with unique names or interesting names, I know you're Ethiopian. Like, is there a meaning behind your name?
Yes. So my first name, it means peace, just like shalom.
Okay.
Um, my last name, Degefu, it's like a specific tribe. I think it means like leaning on. So here's the thing. In Ethiopia, our father's first name is our last name. So my name used like my dad's name means renewed. So he named me my peace is renewed. But
Oh,
then I came to the States and they were like, nah, we're giving you a new last name. So they gave me dad's name, dad's first name. So yeah, that's my last name now.
interesting. Hey, so how do y'all keep track of like who belongs to who? Like, if you always get your first name as your last name, how does that work? Do y'all just know like, oh, that's so and so's like kid?
You know, it's so funny how everybody says like everybody's their cousin if they're from Ethiopia. Like literally somebody would be their neighbor and they'd be like, that's my cousin. Like it's just everybody's your cousin. So everybody's related to you.
All right, cool. So as I mentioned, you're a software engineer at JP Chase. I think last time we talked, you said you had just come up on your 1 year anniversary, right? All
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
cool.
Staying first year.
Congrats. Tell us a little bit about like what you do at JP Chase. Like, I know your job title, but like, what does that actually mean? What are some of the things you do for JP Morgan?
Yeah. So right now I'm working on a UI project. We're building an application for like internal employees. So mainly I work on building an application. I own one of the micro front ends. So I've just been building that for the past year. I also do some like UI automation for the team internally to like test the software I'm building. So yeah, that's what I'm working on currently.
What kind of technology do you typically have to use, or like what tech stack, I guess I should say? Like, is it JavaScript, React, or what?
Yeah. So for the UI, we're using React and TypeScript. And then sometimes we use Express as well to do like any calls or API events. And then
All right.
WebSocket as well.
Thanks for kind of telling us a little bit about that. We're gonna get back to the role at JP Morgan Chase, but first I want to learn more about you and kind of like your origin story. And we talked earlier, and you told me that you came from Ethiopia over to America when you were 16 years old, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was that like moving from Ethiopia over here to America at 16? What was that experience like?
I would say exciting because I came with my sisters. So I think that kind of, we were just like excited to be here. My mom and like my mom's side of the family, they moved here like a while back. So it was just exciting to like reunite with them, spend time with them, like make for the last times. When it comes to like cultural differences, I think it was like kind of shocking just the way how different people are. It's funny because like back home, you feel like everybody's, like family because like neighbors are so close. And then I came here and I was like, wow, like it's different.
Uh,
But it's I think I was just mostly excited to just like make the most of every like opportunity I was given because I knew like how you can work hard and change your life here, where it's like a little bit different back home. So yeah, it was just like mostly excitement.
Yeah, I can only imagine like completely different culture, food. You learned like you spoke English in Ethiopia, right?
Yeah, yeah. The school
Okay.
that I went to was mostly like English speaking.
Okay. So I guess that's the one similarity, but like everything else is kind of like completely different culture shock. So I'm glad you've been able to make the transition. Is it like an added pressure to like exceed and do well? Cause I know like immigrant parents can be like, yo, you're gonna be a lawyer, a doctor, engineer, and you're gonna be highly successful. Like that's it. That's like the bar. So like is there like a lot of added pressure?
Yeah, I think just knowing that people look up to you kind of put pressure in a good way, I feel like.
Okay.
It makes you just even want to strive better to not only like make a living for yourself, but to also make sure that your blessing is enough for others as well. So I think just having family back there kind of motivates you to make it, but not only for yourself, but for them too.
Thanks for kind of going into detail about that. I'm just always curious, like when I meet people about like their story, especially when they're from another country. I know a lot of Nigerian people, and they're like, "Yo, like we only have three options, Drew. Like lawyer, doctor, engineer. Like if I don't do that, I'm a failure in the family." So
Yeah.
I always like to learn when I can. One of the things I didn't mention about you that you have a degree in healthcare administration from the University of Nevada, which is very different from software engineering, I'd imagine. Tell us a little bit about like your college journey and like why you chose healthcare administration versus like computer science or something.
Yeah. So you know how you're mentioning you have like three options: doctor, lawyer. So my assignment was engineer. But my dad was super chill. He was like, okay, like he saw the gift in me before I felt like I knew what I wanted to do. So he was like, okay, like I feel like you're really good with computers, so you should study computer engineering. So I came here, so I declared my major as a computer scientist. So I was studying computer science, and then I was like, wow, like I felt like there wasn't a lot of people that looked like me. It was a little bit intimidating. I was like, okay, maybe like I don't know if I can do this, you know? So I got
Mm.
intimidated. I was like, nah, this ain't for me. So I went to my counselor and I was like, okay, what else? What else can I do? And then she was like, how about being a dentist? I was like, okay, I think I can do that. So
That might pass with your parents. Your parents might allow that one.
right. I was like, okay. So I did dentistry and then I was like, this ain't it. So I went back and I was like, me again, last time. What should I be? So she was just asking me, like, okay, like, so what are you passionate about? And I was like, I love working with people. Like, I'm huge on helping others and making sure, like, what I do, I can see, like, the impact of it. She was like, okay, have you ever thought about healthcare administration and policy? I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. So I declared my major, started, ended up liking it. It was super interesting. I had big goals. I was like, I'm going to change the healthcare industry. Like, I'm going to be the next generation that's going to change it, you know? So I did that quickly. I realized it just took a lot more than just 1% to change it. I was like, okay, you know what? That's not. So yeah, I worked for like about a year and a half in the industry.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, we always like in college, you always get like this false sense of reality in terms of like you feel like super ambitious and like you can change the world, and then you graduate and you go out into the real world, and it's like, nah, we got systems in place, and you're gonna need a
Yeah.
whole team and billions of dollars to like make the kind of impact you want to
Yeah.
make. So, a nice slice of reality. Your story is kind of relatable to a lot of college students who go to school because that's the expectation, but you're still really trying to figure out like what your purpose is and everything. And I can completely relate to like your feelings of like not belonging initially, like when you look in a room and it's not very many black and brown faces of color in there. You're like, am I in the right room? Do I belong
Yeah.
here? So I'm glad. Yeah. So I'm glad you found your way back to it though. What was your first job after college when you worked in the healthcare field or industry?
Yeah, so after I did my internship for the director of Dignity Health, I don't know if you're familiar with that. And then I got hired at DaVita Medical Group. I worked there as a patient service rep for about, I would say, because I got hired 6 months before graduation. So I worked a year after graduation, so a total of a year and a half.
Okay. Don't want to go into great detail, but is it like a decent living you can make as like a healthcare
And
professional?
I think healthcare can be very generalized because, there are the physicians and
Yeah.
PA nurses, and then there are the administrators. So I would say like, unless you have a master's or you really work hard and eventually like it takes like few promotions for you to make like decent. Whereas like engineering straight out of college, you can make decent living. So that's
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Nice. So talk to me about the journey of going from like healthcare administration into tech. Because you told me you ended up working in tech sales for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was great. Let me know if I'm getting too much in detail, but
Nah, you're good.
I, I remember it was about like I was hitting like a year and a half mark. So I went to my manager and I was like, I was just very ambitious. I thought I was gonna, like grow and make a lot of money. So I went up to her and I was like, okay, I'm ready for promotion. Like, what am I gonna do next? She was like, there are people that have worked here for 12 years. And I was like, so you want me to work for 12 years before you get me anywhere? I was like, nope. And then I saw that there was an opening at the CDC, and I was like, great, like I really want to work for the government. This is perfect. So I had applied for the CDC, and then my project was supposed to be in Hawaii. So I was supposed to start in August. I was super excited. And then I got an email like, oh, the project is canceled because of funding. I was like, okay, so what do I do next with my life? And then I reached out to my mentor. He was based in DC. And I was like talking to him. And then he was like, like you've always mentioned like you had some interest in computer, but you love talking to people. He was like, have you ever considered like doing sales, but in software?
Mm,
And I was like, nope, I don't know what it is, but sign me up. So I signed up for this fellowship, which they guarantee you that you will make at least 70K if you finish their internship. I was like, oh, not decent. 8 weeks. I'm like, what do I have to lose? It's free.
yeah.
So I did that. And then I finished my 8 weeks. And then right after I moved to the Silicon Valley. So I worked there for about 3.5 years. Initially, I started as a sales rep, then changed to an account manager. And then by the time I left, I was an account executive.
Thank God for your mentor. Like, how did you even find them? Like, is it somebody like a family friend or like, did you meet somebody in college? Like, how did that come up?
Yeah, so there was this program called the National Society of Leadership and Success. It's not like a sorority, but they have it all over the US in colleges.
Okay.
So I'm doing their leadership training, and then that's where I met the leader. He was like the chapter director in DC.
Awesome. No, we got to check that out. So if you're listening, make sure you do look that up. Cool. So, and then also you said a fellowship that like, if once you completed it, you're like guaranteed a job that pays 70K. Like, what was the name of that fellowship in case people want to know?
It's called Silicon Valley Academy. So SV Academy.
SV Academy. Is it like an annual one time a year kind of thing, or is it like a rolling? Do you know like the application process for it?
I So when I had applied, I was like their third cohort. So I was like the guinea pig. It was like super new. So
Yeah.
back then they were doing it every 3 months. I truly don't know how often they do it now, but I presume if anything, they would do like every 3 months or
Yeah.
sooner.
But no, it's still good to know. Silicon Valley Academy tech
Mhm.
sales. That's awesome. All right,
Yeah.
cool. Dope, dope, dope. So wow, you did that. You kind of worked your way up. It sounds like you were doing a good job, right? You getting promoted. Is that something you enjoyed or what?
I love working with people. I'm a very like people person, so it was fun to like always be in front of a client like 9 hours a day working with people. I would say it's stressful. It's not easy. It wasn't an easy job. Obviously, like there's always something to give when you make good for a living. Like I feel like it comes with like some additional burden. So I enjoyed it. I didn't hate it. I just didn't feel like it was it for me.
Are you comfortable talking about like what kind of salary tech sales people make? Is it like commission based or salary based?
So I think it really depends on the company you land. The company I was working at the time, so initially we were doing 70/30, so 70% salary, 30% commission,
Yeah.
and then we did bonuses. But now, for the most part, it's 60/40. So 60 salary, 40 commission, and then you have some bonuses.
Last sales question. What kind of like products did you guys sell for this company?
So you probably have seen it 'cause it's everywhere. It's like the live chat. When you go on a website, it's like, hey, if you have any question, chat with us.
Oh, the like chatbot?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah. So y'all did that?
Yes, yes.
Ooh, that's pretty neat. You've kind of mentioned it already. Like you've always been trying to figure out what's for you, like what's the right path, whether it was in college or even working in industry at your previous jobs. How did you decide to go from tech sales into software engineering, especially given that you previously felt like software engineering wasn't for you?
Yeah, so I remember when I was working at Intercom, like my previous company in sales. So we worked directly with like the sales engineer and sometimes with product engineers because if it's like a client that pays like good amount of money, they would request a feature, and then you would have to work with the engineer to build the feature and work with the client to test the feature that they built. So I had that like working relationship with engineers, and I've always, since I had that interest initially, I've always been fascinated. So they would like invite me to like, they call it like AMA, Ask Me Anything. So all the engineers had the AMA night on Thursdays. So it's always on my calendar. Sometimes when I have time, I would join, and people would just think I'm the engineer because I was the only salesperson there. And I was just be fascinated. I was like, wow, like it's really interesting, like what they're building and what they're doing. But I was like, no, like you don't have time. Like there's no way, So I never pursued it. And then one time, one of the girls who worked in the PR, she used to invite me to like this like meetups
Hmm.
to learn how to code. So I would go with her, and then I was like, you know what, like let's sign up. So we signed up for a class, and then like not even a month later, I quit because I was like, this is too stressful. Like I don't know how people do this while working. And then I put it like in the back burner, and then I was like, okay, when the pandemic hit, I was like, okay, like I feel like this is a time to slowly like pivot over and like finally pursue what I wanted. So there was this role that I really wanted out of my company, and I didn't end up getting it. And I was like, okay, that'll be a sign that like it's time to finally like just like, pursue what I wanted to do. So
Yeah.
I felt like I got the sign that I was looking for. So I finally quit my job, took like a month and a half break, and then enrolled in a boot camp.
That's exciting. I'm glad that that worked out. You got that sign that you were looking for. Like this is the
Oh,
right thing.
yeah.
So like, were you doing like a full time boot camp? Because I know like boot camps in general can be a lot. You're learning like a semester's worth or like a year's worth of knowledge in like 10 to 15 weeks. So like, what kind of? Tell me a little bit more about like the boot camp you were taking.
Yeah. So I did a boot camp called Flatiron. It's 16 weeks, without counting the pre-work that you have to do. It was intense to say, because people, I remember when I was talking to the lady, like the admission lady, she was like, yeah, so you're not going to have any life for 16 weeks. And I was like, sure, like it's not that stressful.
Like,
And
relax, girl.
right. And then I started it, and I was like, yeah, no, I literally like I didn't even have time to text people. I like no life. But it's so worth it. It's like when you think about it, it's like for 4 months, it's like blood and sweat, but it's just your set, once you get your foot in the door. So
Yeah.
it's just a lot of like sleepless night just working and trying to like learn because you're trying to learn something that people learn in 4 years. So it takes a lot of time to teach, a lot of grace that you have to have on yourself when you feel like you're the dumbest person in the world for not getting it. But so worth it. I would do a little bit again.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. I'm glad you said that word grace because like we're our own worst critics, right? Like if you don't learn something instantly, you're like stupid and you're not
Yep.
capable and you shouldn't be doing this. You need to try something else. It's not for you. But yeah, definitely like give yourself grace and time to adapt and learn and adjust is important. I'm always like an advocate. Well, I don't think college is for everybody. I'll say that. Like, I think if you have the opportunity to go, especially if you have the finances to go, you should do it. But I know that like people come from different backgrounds, different circumstances. So I always think like boot camps, associate degrees, certifications, fellowships, like the one you got. All those things are like good alternatives. How were you able to like pay out of pocket for the boot camp with like since you had a full time job previously, or like how did you kind of finance it?
So you have an option to either do a loan through the school. Um, I didn't like that because once you get a job, you'll end up paying like 6K more than if you were
Mm,
either pay it upfront or like use private loan. So I just used my credit card to pay for it. Um, I didn't even want to use like my money, and I was like, what if it doesn't work out? But yeah, I just used my credit card to pay for it. But there are a lot of options. Like you can take loans through the school. There are some
yeah.
loans we have contracted with that you can take through them, or you can take private loan.
Gotcha. Cool. I'm glad that that worked out. So looking at your LinkedIn profile, I did notice that like before you landed at JP Morgan Chase, you did like a software quality assurance engineering role. Like when did that kind of come into play and what did that role kind of entail?
Yeah. So this was me testing like the waters. Because so QA is, I don't know if you know how much you know about like what exactly the difference is. So when you build a software, there is a whole different team that tests the software you built. So those are called quality assurance. So it's less stressful than actually building the product. So I was like, okay, like before I quit my job and make sure like I dedicate everything to software engineering, I was like, let me just test the waters because it allowed me to like go to school after work. So it was like Tuesdays and Thursdays for like, I think 4 hours. It's another fellowship. It's like another school that I did. And then they have real internships that you can do. So I did an internship, which gave me like an idea of like, okay, like I know what I'm getting myself into. So I did that until February. It was like a short-lived, literally like not even 4 months. That's when I said, okay, I'm ready to quit my job and pursue software engineering.
That's cool. Like you're like the queen of finding like these unique opportunities. Was this like another paid gig or like what?
No, this I paid, but this one was like super cheap. You pay, I think I paid 3,600.
Okay. And it's like
Yeah.
a like how, so it's like a fellowship. So you pay for the fellowship and then they like expose you to different careers in tech.
Yep. And not
Uh
different, specific with quality assurance. Like
oh,
they give
okay.
a real work, a real world experience. So like they
Yeah.
call it an internship, but literally you're just testing people's real world software. And then once you finish your internship and they like kind of like sign off on it, they transfer you to a career coach and then the career coaches help you try to find a job. But I knew like I knew there was more to it than just like working as a QA. So I was like, okay, I thank you for the lessons. And this is where
Yeah.
I, yeah.
You do like little tests yourself, like in your career, like, let me do like a little sample size of this, like
Yep.
attending the AMAs. Like, yeah, this is curious. This is interesting. Let me like test it out some more. Taking like a class, the internship is quality assurance. So I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Andrew, one thing I want to say is like, I feel like people are so scared to like switch careers. Like they don't realize like literally you can always go back. Like I can always go back to doing sales. Like I can always go back to the healthcare. Like you can always go back to it. Like explore it. Like until you find what you feel like you were called to do or you like you feel passionate about. Like don't be scared to switch careers. Like it's fine. It's all gonna work out.
yeah. No, thanks for saying that because a lot of people do have that fear. Like, I think
Mhm.
it's I don't know. I think like we're kind of conditioned to have this idea that like, yo, you go to college for 4 years, you graduate, and whatever you went to college for, that's what you're gonna spend the rest of your life doing. But I think, and then some of us have seen our parents do that too. So it's kind of like our millennial Gen Z generation is now starting to get out of that. But it's still like a little bit of a fear where you kind of feel like even if you're leaving like one job to another job, it kind of feels like you're taking a leap of like faith.
Yep.
So I appreciate you for saying that. 'Cause I think people need to hear that more.
Hmm.
Real quick, what were your, like, your family and friends saying, like, throughout this time? Like, you went to college for one thing, but you're, like, going into tech sales? Are your parents like, "Yo, you can do it, Salam?" Or are they like, "Finally, I need my engineer to, like, come into fruition," or, like, what was, like, their mindset?
So my dad is very huge on education. So for him, it's like it doesn't matter what you're switching as long as like you're learning. Like wherever you go, whatever career you're switching to, you're always learning something new. So for him, he's like, by all means. I remember when I told him that I was going to switch to sales, he was like, I'm sorry, what are you going to do now? He was like, first, it was the healthcare policy that I didn't even understand. Now you're going to go to sales. He literally thought I was like, what, like knocking on people's door and selling things, you know? But yeah, he was all for it. He was like more education by all means. My mom is always supportive. Like whatever I do, she's like, if it makes you happy, I'm down for it. She's that type of mom.
Very
But yeah,
cool.
I think I wouldn't have been able to get through it if I didn't have like the family support. Cause like, working that hard, you want somebody to check on you, cook for you, like make sure like they're there for you. Just like even the emotional support.
Yeah, that encouragement is needed, We need, like, not just accountability partners that are, like, gonna hold us accountable, like, "Yo, you said you're gonna finish this boot camp. You better finish the
Mhm.
joint," but also people that are like, yo, when you down and out, you can like look to them for like encouragement. So I'm glad that you had that support system throughout the process. So once you completed, like, tell me how you landed the job at JP Morgan Chase. Like, that's exciting.
Yeah. So a month before graduation, I've always said like, okay, I finished boot camp. I think I was supposed to finish in July. I was like, I take a 2 month break, maybe go to one country. And then 2 months later, I'm going to start finding a job. That's always been like my goal. And then I remember a month before graduation, I was just like surfing through LinkedIn and I was like, oh, why don't I just check out like what the people who've graduated from the program are doing now? So I was just checking And I saw this girl who was working at JP Morgan. And I was like, huh, my cousin works there. So I've always wanted to work there. And I was like, like,
Mm.
let me just like ask her like how her experience has been and like how she likes it. So I reached out to her. I didn't hear back from her immediately. So I think like 2 weeks later, she reached out to me. She was like, hey, we're actually hiring. And then she sent me a link. She was like, you should apply. So I took that link and I sent it to two of like the people in my cohort. And then I applied. So we all three of us, it was the only three girls in the cohort. So three of us, we apply. So they reached out to me a week later. They were like, oh my God, we have an interview with JP. And I was like, excuse me, I don't. Like, how did I send you the link and you get an interview and I don't? So they did their interviews and I wait, I don't hear back. I was like, okay, like something is wrong. So I find this recruiter on LinkedIn and I reach out to her and I was like, hey, like I saw that you have an opening and I really would love a chance to like interview. And then she was amazing. She responded within like 3 hours and she was like, okay, she was like, unfortunately, like the deadline for the application has already passed. And they do this thing called hackathon, which is like the final round interview. She was like, the hackathon is scheduled for Monday. By the time we're speaking, it's Wednesday. So she was like, will you be down to do like back-to-back interviews in the next coming days? I was like, sign me up. So Thursday, I did my first round. Friday, I did my second round. And then I ended up doing the hackathon on Monday. And then we were graduating on Friday. And then Wednesday, I got the offer, which is like 2 days before graduation.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a heck of a story. So you went from I know you probably had, like, mixed feelings a little bit, like, I would imagine I think I would try to, like, suppress them, but I'm like, "Yo, I sent these people the application link and they got in, I didn't get a call back, like, what's going on, yo?" But I think
Right.
it's great, like, that tenacity that you had to, like, reach out to them and be like, "Yo, like, I'm not taking no for an answer, like, I need at least to get FaceTime, like, if I could just pitch to you, like, why I'm a
Yeah.
perfect candidate." So I'm glad you did that, and I think other people can kinda learn from that example. So what inspired you to do that? You just, like, were self-motivated, or, like, did your mentor, like, encourage you to do that? Or what? Like, to reach out to the recruiter and, like, not just take no for an answer?
I think for me, I've always known like that's like the best way to network is always like try to get somebody like because when you think about it, there's like thousands and thousands of applicants. So like and when the recruiter had told me since I was based in San Francisco and they don't have office in San Francisco, the machine didn't even read my resume. So hadn't I
Mm.
never even got my resume. So for me, it's like I knew that like it's just machines reading this resume. So I always try to find somebody in the company to talk to. So I knew that because when we did sales, we always like that's how we prospected clients, like talk to them on LinkedIn. So I just knew that's the best way to do. So I was like, okay, if I don't hear back, I'm gonna slide in somebody's DMs.
Yeah, that is so great. I'm glad you said that because it's so true. Like a lot of times jobs, even if they're remote, like, and they still have like a home base somewhere, like you still have to like be able to pass through that initial filter. So having those keywords, the right location, like all that stuff is important. But yeah, slide into the DMs. Like that's what brought
Yep.
us here today, by the way. Like I saw you on the I didn't mention it, but I saw you like on the Chase emerging talent website, and I was like looking for people of color, and I'm like, okay, she looks cool. Like, let me reach out to her. So it always works out to your favor, even if you doesn't like get the end result you want. Like, at least you tried, you know. So definitely do that. Awesome. So, like you got a job in like a week, like less than a week. So that's pretty intense. So, like this particular program, did you have to go through the hackathon? Was that like a requirement for it? Okay. Cool, and what
Yes. They did. So they did the first round. You do like a phone screening with the recruiter. Second round, it was a technical challenge. But like for the third round, which is amazing because what they do is like for the hackathon, they take like real world like nonprofit organization and you build an application for them. That's like it's like a 12-hour hackathon and you build an application for them. So that's their way of giving back, which is like amazing because you're like, hi, at least if I don't get the job, I did something for the world, you know? Feel better about it being stuck in computer for 12 hours.
That's awesome. How well prepared did you feel having completed well, you hadn't at that point, you didn't even officially graduate from Flatiron yet, but, like, how prepared did you feel, like, going into the hackathon?
I think for me, it's like, okay, like at that point, like I knew like I wouldn't say even the basics. So at that point, I had done like 3, 4 projects. So I've done like a full, like build an application from scratch. So I was like confident in like building the application. It was just like the nerve of like kind of get through the manager because like there's a manager that sits in the room and just watches what you're doing. So for them, it's mainly like, can you work with people? Like they all like everybody there can code. They know they can build an application. So it's just like, can you work great with others? So for me, it was just like the nerves of like, will they like me? Will they like what I do? And like, will they be impressed by my work? But like when it comes to like the technical aspects, I felt like kind of ready for it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think like talking to other people that are like in tech, especially software engineers, like they always tell me that like a large part of their interview process is more so exploring like who they are individually as a person, their passion, their interests. Like, are they a good cultural fit? Like, what are their soft skills like? Versus just like, hey, code this beast of an app or whatever. Like, of course, they still want to know that you have like the technical skills to go along with it, but I think a lot of companies are really looking to see like, hey, are you gonna work good with a team? Because I think, especially like engineers, like whether it's mechanical, software, whatever, like we get this notion that like, or this, a lot of people have the assumption that like you're gonna just work in a corner, like in your own little silo with your head down, coding away. But a lot of it is like working on teams and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Cool. So, great. I'm glad you got a chance to go through that. Do you know the name of that program in case other people like want to check it out or apply for it?
It's called Emerging Talent Software Engineering.
All right, gotcha. Cool. At the completion, like once you got accepted into it, like you did the hackathon, you did the interviews, you got immediately put into a full time, like junior level software engineering position.
Yeah.
Nice.
So at JP Morgan, they call it like a software analyst, and then you get promoted to a software engineer, but they call it an associate software engineer. So the first 2 years, it's a junior role, but they call it an analyst. You're a software analyst, but it's a junior full-time role.
Okay. And so tell me about when they make the offer to you. Like, what was that call or conversation like? And did you like try to negotiate your salary or anything? Like, what was that like?
Oh, of course I did. It's so funny because, so I told you I sent the link to two of my friends in the cohort. So
Yeah.
one girl, she had got an offer before me. So she called me. She was like, "Did you hear back?" And I was like, "No, I'm like refreshing my email. There's nothing in there." And she's like, "No, they're gonna call you first, and then like if you said you verbally accept, they'll send you an email." And I was waiting and I didn't hear back. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm not even going to stress. So I was like walking, like going for a walk. And then I see on my phone, like, you have one secure message from Chase. So I opened the email and it says like a pre-screening, like pre-employment screening. And I was like, what is this about? Like, they didn't even call me. So I called her and I was like, did you get this? She was like, yeah. After I like gave a verbal offer, they sent me that. She was like, well, congratulations. You're going to be working with me. And I was like, no, until I hear like somebody calling me and offering me, I'm not going to like get over myself. And then, so this was Wednesday, right? So Thursday morning, a guy called me and he just like said like, hey, we'll have to extend an offer. Would you accept? And then I was like, I'll accept in one condition. Cause at the time I was still in San Francisco. So I was like, will you pay my relocation? And then
Mhm.
I was trying to like negotiate, like, okay, can I get stocks? Cause like since it's a program, it's a set salary. Like there's no way you can negotiate. So I was like, I need to find another way to like make up for what they're not going to pay me. So I was trying to see if they would like pay for my relocation or like my stock. So there's always a different way you can negotiate other than just the salary.
Look at you, like busting out the salary negotiation skills, like right off the bat. Is that something that you did like in your previous roles, or was that your first time trying?
Oh no, I've always done that. Cause
Always. All
when
right.
you work in sales, like customers will always come back and try to negotiate the price with you. Like when you're selling them the software.
Yeah.
So I had the like negotiation skill in me. So now it's so
Ah.
even like in my apartment, they were trying to like increase my rent. I was like, I'm negotiating. So now I for everything.
Negotiating everything. Hey, I don't blame you, especially on these rent prices. They trying to get kind of crazy out here. So have at it. I think that's a great journey to like getting into tech. You've been now at JP Morgan Chase for a year. I'm curious, like, what kind of lifestyle can somebody expect, like, if they're pursuing a software engineering career?
I think like working in tech is great because it comes with a lot of perks. Especially, I feel like it's different if you work for startups. Like I was so spoiled at my last company. I literally had like trips and like hotels and like everything you can think of. But it's great. Like I don't specifically want to focus on software engineering, but in general in tech, it's like a great field to be in. It's ever growing. Like you could always like hop like from one job to another. My director used to make fun of us. He'd be like, I really treat you guys well because if you get an elevator, you walk out with 5 offers. Like that's how like demand it is. Like so I would say like it gives you the lifestyle. I think specifically software engineering, depending on what state you're in, it's like 6 figures, like even as a junior role. So it's great. I would say like definitely go for it. Especially if you don't know what you want to do yet. Like it's just
Yeah.
place to explore, like get money while you're doing it, you know?
That is so true. Like, I think that's kinda like my biggest pitch to people right now, especially people that like let's just no knock on people that work in retail, but like let's say that's usually people's starting point, right? Like either that was my starting point, working in the mall or like working at some fast food chain. So I'm like, yo, you have to as while you're figuring out your journey, like why not get paid a lot of money and like have like an in-demand skill that you can transfer to any other industry. So I think it's like the perfect starting point. One of the things that I think is unique about you is you've worked both on like the tech sales side and then also worked in the software engineering role. If somebody's just like, "Yo, I don't know where to start. I just want to start where I can make the most money." Which one would you say probably makes more money?
I would say sales. So here's the thing. In software engineering, I would say in 5 years, you definitely will make, but it really depends. It depends, first of all, what you're selling, like the type of software
Mhm.
you're selling. Because some softwares, like they might offer you like 200,000 salary, but like it might be like, oh, 100,000 is the starting. But to get to the other 100,000, the compensation, the commission, I don't know why I keep calling it compensation. It's more than a year, come on. The commission is like way hard to achieve. So you might
Gotcha.
not do it, but it really depends. Like if the commission is achievable in the short run, you will definitely make more being in sales. But I feel like in the long run, software engineering will pay off.
I'm curious, you mentioned before your dad was like, "Yo, you're gonna be an engineer. That's what you're doing. No arguing, whatever. Just embrace it." You go to school, you're like, "This is not for me." Then you go into business, healthcare administration, you realize, "Hey, this is not for me." Then you do tech sales. You enjoy it working with the people and everything, but still you're like, "This is not for me." So now I gotta ask you, like, is this for you? Like software engineering? Because I mean, yeah, you've been kinda it's come full circle now, but does this feel like this is for you?
I think so. I think so. It's so funny. Like my friends, they always make fun of me. They're like, "Salam, is real estate next? Like, what's next for Salam?" I was like, "I'll let you know when I get there. For now, I'm comfortable." I think I really like what I do. Like, I love the impact what I'm making. And I've always said like I want a skill that I can transfer to others. I feel like there's a huge lack of like I wanna say diversity, but specifically, like, women of color in the tech industry, like, specifically software engineering, and I was like, "Okay,
Mhm.
like, I wanna do something that I feel like I can always give back and, like, pull others with me as I go higher." So I feel like for now, like, I have the passion for it, I enjoy what I'm doing, but who knows? Stay tuned.
Alright, gotcha. Hey, that's fair, and, that's the thing, like, you don't have to be married to one decision or one career, like, as your interests and your passions change, like, let it happen and go with the flow. I can kinda see you, like, being, like, a heck of a real estate agent or investor or something. You have, like, welcoming personality, but if you had to guess 5 years from now well, let's make it a little bit longer in case your employer sees this and they're like, "What? You gonna be where?" 10 years from now, where do you kinda see yourself 10 to 15 years from now?
So I'm really like since I was a kid, I've always wanted to have my own nonprofit. To like give I have a huge passion for children. So I've always wanted to like go back home, not live there, but technically like have a foundation there to like help like young women in the rural areas, give them like education so that eventually they can come here, get scholarship, take the test, and be able to change their life. So my hope is like, when I watch back like 10 years, 15 years from now, hopefully I have like that establishment for my foundation, but maybe like be in like some leadership position, leading others. I have a huge heart for like leadership. So maybe hopefully I'm like leading a team, leading an organization. But I would say like mainly is like be able to have a foundation.
Okay, gotcha. I love it, I love it. And I wanna ask you one more question before you go.
Yeah.
If you had to give, like, a word of wisdom or a piece of advice to, like, some woman of color in order to why they should pursue STEM or tech and how to be successful at it, what would it be?
Don't let the imposter syndrome stop you. I feel like we get really intimidated and like that like inner voice of you, there's like your left shoulder voice, your right shoulder voice. I feel like sometimes the left one might be louder. So I feel like don't let the imposter syndrome stop you. Like, if we all shy away and if we all stop there, like we can never make a change. Like we need to have more people that look like us in the industry. And it just takes one to say like, yeah, I'll do it. Like I have what it takes to do it. So I would say like, You have what it takes to do it. Don't let the imposter syndrome stop you. And that's the only way you can make a change is by going for it. So we need more of you.
This has been a blast, Salam. I really feel like I've gotten a chance to kind of take a deep dive into your career. You have a very unique journey. Like I knew about the tech sales to software engineering stuff, but even like the fellowships and the programs and all the opportunities along the way, like I think it's really interesting and something that people can really take away. And definitely like take the opportunity. Like don't wait, don't let it pass you by. So
Yeah.
I think that's a really great takeaway from your story. Before we go, I always like to give the guests an opportunity to announce anything that they got going on that people should check out, or to give a shout out to anybody that they want to shout out, family, friends, anybody like that. So the floor is yours.
Shout out to God always.
Okay.
Like, what topic to talk about? But legit, I would not be where I am if it was not for God. Like he has
Yeah.
been my guide through and through. But like also like I want to make sure like people know I'm available if you have any question, if you want tips, tricks, like find me on LinkedIn. Like I'm always happy to help. Even if it's just like, oh, like should I do this? Should I not do this? Yeah, reach out to me. I'm always available to give back and help.
Great. I appreciate it, Salam. And I appreciate you all for watching this episode. I hope you really had a lot I feel like there's a lot you can take away from this and really have a successful career. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms at Custom Journeys, CustemJourneys. And then also make sure you subscribe and share this one with a friend. I know there's a lot of people out there who are thinking about tech. Make sure you share this with them. Hopefully it'll help them out with making the switch. But yeah, we'll see you all next week. Peace. Have a good one.